What's up, everybody? My name is Nelson. I'm the Living Card Gamer, and we just got finished playing 4 games with Spider-Man, the Peter Parker version, and one in each of the 4 different aspects, and now we're here to talk about it. So Spider-Man came in the core box, so he has been around for a long time. It's actually one of the first heroes that most people play, as that is kind of the recommended hero to play your first game with in Marvel Champions. So that typically for me starts to make me think that maybe this isn't going to be the most fun or interesting hero, and I don't think that is the case with Spider-Man. I think Spider-Man is actually one of my favorite heroes of all time, and as we get more cards, he even becomes more interesting. So I'm excited to talk about Peter Parker, rank him in the aspects, and then figure out where he fits in the overall Marvel Champions rankings. So in his alter ego, Peter Parker has an ability called Scientist, which generates a mental resource, which is pretty solid, especially now that we're starting to see things that kind of can synergize with that, like a Moon Girl or something like that we really like to see. He has 3 recovery, 6 hand size, and that 3 recovery is basically a 7, or even better. It's kind of like an instance of 3 and an instance of 4 with Aunt May, and Aunt May is a great card. If you can get her onto the table, then you really can start to play with your health a lot, and it just takes care of a lot of those issues for you. When you flip that card over to the hero side, he has a 1, 2, 3 stat line, and then his Spider Sense ability says that when the villain initiates an attack against you, you get to draw a card. So that 5 hand size is probably going to be a 6 almost every single turn of the game. When there's a little clarification here, so it does say that when the villain initiates an attack, and so you can still have an allied chump block for you and you get the card. However, if you do block for someone else, like another teammate, so it's say Captain Marvel is sitting across the table, if you block for her, you don't get the card in that instance. But it is just it's a phenomenal ability. And this is any time, so it's not like max 1 per round or phase or anything like that. And so if you can get the villain to attack you multiple times, and again, remember, you have 3 defense, so you can take some damage, and even if you do get pretty low, you have Aunt May to heal you, and so you're going to be looking at cards like Toe-to-Toe or some of the other cards like that it has the villain initiate an attack against you, maybe not even in the villain phase, and you get that card draw. Let's talk about some of his kit cards. So Swinging Web Kick did a lot for kind of building out the cost curve for the game. It's a 3 cost attack event for 8 damage, which, I mean, that's a lot of damage. And a lot of people compare a lot of other hero events to this cost curve, so 3 for 8. So Swinging Web Kick, you get 3 of them. It's just a really solid, easy way to deal a lot of damage. I want to talk about Webbed Up real quick. So Webbed Up is a card that I am not a huge fan of in solo play because it pretty much has anti-synergy with his Spider Sense ability. And so Webbed Up says that next time a villain would attack you, you cancel the attack and then you stun the villain. So it does prevent 2 activations, which face value seems pretty good, but remember that you're paying 4 for the card and then you're -2. So you're effectively paying 6 for 2 canceled activations, which gets very difficult to justify, especially in a solo play. In multiplayer, this can get pretty good in the right situation. So if you're playing like 3 player and then it cancels 2 activations and it saves the other 2, then yeah, that gets a little bit easier to play, but it's also really expensive, and so I'm not a huge fan of this card, and I typically just toss it for the resource every single time, but you can play it at your own risk. On the other hand, Backflip is a super sweet card. So it's a 0 cost card to negate all damage dealt to you by an attack. And you get to play it after you see the boost card. So if, like in the Hero Spotlight videos, I was playing against Venom, and sometimes he would have like 12 boost cards, and you could, that's an exaggeration, but a lot of boost cards, right? And so he's swinging at you for, 7, 10, 15. Backflip negates it all for a 0 cost. And it can just be so incredibly good in the right situations, and then you don't have to exhaust your hero. And so if you have a Backflip in hand, you get a card draw, and you can just negate all the damage. Beautiful card. Let's talk about some basic cards real quick. So basic cards are great cards that can go in any deck. And there are a couple of them that are almost auto-includes for Peter Parker at this point. So Ingenuity is a new card that came out in the Ironheart kit. And this says that if you have a Genius trait, which Peter Parker does, then you can play this card. It's a 2 cost card that generates a mental resource, which is just a really good resource generator card. And so I pretty much put that in there unless there may be some reason that I need maybe like a Quinn carrier, but even still, he does have his web shooters, which can generate the wild resource, so it can get around any kind of villain requirements that you may have or run into. And so Ingenuity just feels like a very cheap, effective way to get resources onto the table. To play off the mental resource, also Moon Girl is phenomenal in Spider-Man's deck because you have to either be a champion or a genius to play her. The genius trait is just getting a lot more love. So Moon Girl says that she put her into play for every mental resource that you pay for her, up to 3. They did come out and make sure that they said you cannot overpay for her because, unfortunately. But anyways, so if you pay up to 3, then you can actually draw as many cards as you paid for mental resources with her. So if you pay 3 mental resources, which is pretty easy with his Scientist and Ingenuity, and then probably you're going to have another mental resource in your hand, you basically put Moon Girl down for the cost of the card itself, which is just 1. And she's a 2/2/3, 2 consequentials on both, which kind of hurts, but I mean, just an incredible easy card to get onto the table. 4/2 Thwart, which is Spider-Man's weakness here. 2 Thwart and a block. Always going to go in one of my Spider-Man decks. He is not a web warrior, but we're going to see a card probably this week that will fix that. I know that there are a lot of kind of controversies on whether or not people like that card. We're not going to get into that in this video. Maybe that's a future topic that we can talk about later. Alrighty, so let's just dive into the 4 aspects. And so I played a game in each one of the aspects, and I'm going to rank them on how I see, or how, the most fun for me. And so my 4th favorite aspect, so my least favorite aspect, is going to be aggression. Aggression is kind of hard. He has so much damage in his kit already with the swinging web kicks, and Spider-Man's biggest weakness is threat mitigation, which aggression does not deal with all that well. And like, we have cards like Into the Fray or Chase Them Down that feel like auto includes in this deck to take care of the threat, but still it's just, I don't know. I want to be able to figure out how to flex. And this is, again, solo play, so I think aggression in a multiplayer game does feel a lot better. However, he has the swinging web kick, so do we need a lot of these aggression heavy damage dealers? It leads into his strengths, but it really does not do a good job of covering his weaknesses. However, I will say Hone Technique, which is a new card that we have seen, is a very excellent card to run because he's already kind of building around a lot of these mental resources, and then he has Ingenuity, which can generate a mental resource. Then this Hone Technique, this one card right here, which allows you to add the cost of the card into the damage dealt in an aggression card, almost bumped him up to number 3, but unfortunately we just did not get there. So number 3 is Leadership, and that's pretty much because of his signature ally, which is Black Cat. She does not take a consequential damage anytime she attacks, which allows you to build a pretty fun Voltron deck. And so Voltron, for those unaware, are basically you take one ally and beef them up so that they are almost stronger than your hero. She does a great job with that because one of the weaknesses in the Voltron strategy is eventually your allies die. Bummer. But Black Cat does not. She only has 2 health, so you may have to protect her a little bit there from some, like Star Shark or something that deals 1 damage to everything on the table. But really, if you don't have anything like that, you're not going up against any villains that do ping damage to your allies, then she can sit on the table the entire time and just start throwing some stuff on her. I do recommend throwing an Honorary Avenger on her to get some of those Avenger upgrades that are just sweet. But if you put that on her, and then she just starts swinging for a lot of damage. Whenever I'm running a Voltron deck, I typically throw in like Iron Man and or Ronin as well, just because if you don't draw a Black Cat, that can be kind of difficult. And then you have other allies that really kind of lend themselves to being excellent Voltron allies. Spider-Man does like to be an alter ego. He has a pretty good alter ego ability as well as support. And so if you build maybe like Black Cat around attacking and then some of your other allies around threat mitigation, then you're able to flip and take good use of all of those alter ego supports and abilities. In second place, I have Justice. And again, this is solo play, and Justice really just shores up his weaknesses. He has 1 thwart, which can just be so detrimental, especially if you are leaning into his strength and defending with that 3 defense. That 1 thwart, you're not even able to use that. It makes it really difficult to remove threat from the board. And so unless you're playing like a rush strategy or something like that, Justice really just shores up his weaknesses. And then you can use his basic powers to do other things, and then Justice to mitigate the threat. As I was saying earlier, he does like to be an alter ego, and so running a Justice deck flipping down, the villain's going to be scheming, and so that does allow you to remove the threat when you do flip back up. You don't really have to worry about taking damage, and May allows you to heal it, especially because you're going to be flipping home, or you're going to be going home, and so you can heal up to 8 every time you take a trip home, and it's just like, Justice feels very good in shoring up his weaknesses and makes him just a really well-rounded character. All of that being said leads me into my favorite aspect with Spider-Man, which is protection. And so I don't think this comes as a surprise to anybody, but protection just really leans into his strengths. And like I was kind of saying, it feels kind of like I'm contradicting myself, right? Like I want something that, can be a well-rounded, like Justice and kind of shore up his weaknesses. But now I'm saying like I want protection to like dive into and play off his strengths. But protection just works so well because he has a 3 defense. You can bump that up to 4 really easily with a armored vest. And then we have a lot of cards that now can mitigate some of those weaknesses. Now we have cards like Hard to Ignore or Jump Flip, or things that help with that threat mitigation whenever you do not take damage, which is pretty easy for Spider-Man not to do with that high defense and or backflip. One of my favorite things to do in Spider-Man Protection is to run Unflappable, which states that if you don't take any damage from an attack, you get to exhaust it and draw a card. This means that if you are blocking a villain attack, you get to draw a card from the villain initiating attack and then one from not taking any damage. So right there in hero form, you're at 7 cards already. So that is just so great, and you have so much flexibility at that point to flex into what you need to do. And it's just so much fun. This is one of the first heroes I played, and while Quicksilver showed me the light that protection was, Spider-Man was a close follow-up and really like made me fall in love with Green because he's just so good in that aspect. And you're able to keep that health high, which can lead into some other synergies that Green has to offer. So let's rank them. So I have started putting out to the communities for people to rank them, and I pretty much agree here with what the community says, which is probably going to be like right about here, that Spider-Man's a B tier hero. So I'm going to rank him as a B tier left of Black Widow. He's one of my favorite heroes. I think that he is just solid all around. If you can figure out how to thwart with them, then you're going to be solid. So what was your favorite aspect? I also put out another poll, which you can probably see right about here, that kind of people voted for. But if you didn't get a chance to vote in that poll, let me know in the comments. Tell me what you like about Spider-Man. What are some of the things that you wish you could have seen with Spider-Man? And I look forward to reading those. In the video description, you can vote for who I play next. I probably will be playing Spider-Ham and Spider, SPDR, because I think I'm getting those this week, so I'm really excited about those. So those will probably be my next Hero Spotlights, but then we will resume the voting. As always, if you liked what you saw here, if you could give me a like and a sub, that would be amazing. It goes so far in helping the channel. Thank you so very much for watching, and I hope you have a great time playing Marvel Champions. Peace.